Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Amrita Yanamandra. I'm a PAN ambassador and president of the webinar committee for PAN India. And I welcome you all to this webinar on cardiovascular risk and nutrition with our guest speaker, Dr. Kim Williams. Welcome very much to our webinar, Dr. Williams, and thank you very much for accepting our invite to be our guest speaker. As we all know, cardiovascular disease is a big problem in India, and the epidemic of cardiovascular disease in India, the burden is such that the age of onset is earlier, and also we have a lot of burden of premature deaths because of cardiovascular disease. And poor nutrition is one of the important risk factors when it comes to cardiovascular disease. And PAN, which stands for Physicians Association of Nutrition, the mission of PAN is to try and eliminate these diet-related diseases by focusing or making nutrition as the core part of our healthcare system. And Dr. Kim Williams has been, he's a renowned cardiologist, and he has been an strong advocate of nutrition when it comes to prevention of diseases, and his focus has been on preventive cardiology. So we are really very grateful to you, sir, for being here with us today, and we are looking forward to hearing some some tips from you as to how to improve our diet to prevent disease. So just a brief introduction of Dr. Williams. He's the Endowed Professor of Health Equity and Chairman of the Department of Medicine at University of Louisville. He is board certified in internal medicine, cardiovascular disease, nuclear cardiology, and cardiovascular CT. He has served as the president of the American College of Cardiology and the American Society of Nuclear Cardiology, and his career has focused on advocacy for nutrition, eradication of healthcare disparities, improved healthcare access, and overall health system reform. He was the chief of the cardiology at Rush University until 2022, and he has also served there as the associate dean for Faculty of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion until his current position at the University of Louisville. He was the founder of the Urban Cardiology Initiative in Detroit and Chicago as well. He has a lot of community-based efforts which includes screening for heart disease, intervening with education, nutrition, and lifestyle changes, and HEART program. HEART stands for Helping Everyone Assess Risk Today. He's the founding editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Disease Reversal and Prevention, and he's an internationally recognized author and speaker with hundreds of papers and publications, and he has been perennially named in the America's Top Doctors list and has received multiple national and international awards, including Lifetime Achievement Recognition. And it gives me great pleasure again to welcome you, Dr. Williams, to our webinar. And I think we can start now. I think we're good to go.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I haven't been to India in almost a decade. It's certainly hopefully time to come back and continue talking about these really important aspects. And so I'm going to start off sharing my screen if I can. Okay, there we go. And hopefully everyone can see that.
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. And hopefully the closed caption at the bottom isn't impairing your vision of the slides. No problem?
Yeah, no problems. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. All right. So we're going to talk about nutrition and cardiovascular risk. And I have to tell you that I got involved in this mainly because of my ethnicity. And this is your typical American slide. A lot of people, leading killer of Americans since 1918, very expensive, but with a lot of health inequities, meaning that particularly poor and African Americans and poor whites, particularly now that I live in Kentucky, and part of our state is the so-called Appalachian white phenomenon of people whose health habits are very much like inner city African Americans. 30% higher cardiovascular mortality rate. Well, guess what? That's matched by our South Asian population here in the United States. And this has gone on for quite a while. And for, I think, the first half of my career, it was being attributed to South Asians, particularly Indians, Pakistanis, having smaller coronary arteries. Now that we have really good CT angiography, we know that that's not true. There's nothing wrong with the coronary arteries. It's all nutrition. And there's nothing wrong with being Black in the United States. It's all nutrition. So that's really the major theme. And all the numbers that I'm going to show you, in African Americans, higher heart failure rates, more strokes, all of it are things that we could deal with if we could just straighten out the nutrition habits. So what is it like in India? You mentioned it. It's early disease. It's not just, and when I first started, as you mentioned, me being president of the American College of Cardiology, one of our jobs was to try to increase training and fellowship testing around the world, and have chapters in every area where people could rely on us to help them, and vice versa, give us advice on how to do things. And one of the issues, I mean, there are some big issues all over. There are Middle Eastern countries where the smoking starts at age 6. There are South Asian countries where the average age of bypass surgery is 43. And so this is really a phenomenon that really has to be taken into account. It's not all genetic. It's not all just happenstance. It really is the kind of cultural things that we can help if we do work seriously on the diet. Okay, so these are the numbers that you're all probably very familiar with, that 6 to 10 years earlier for the heart attacks, 40% of heart attacks occurring in people less than 45 and 2/3 less than 55. And when you compare it to the United States, it's maybe the overall numbers are just as bad as our African-American community, but it's earlier. And so this is something that we really have to grapple with. And how do you do it? Well, early screening. So the HEART program is where we go into the inner city, do a finger stick cholesterol and a blood pressure. And now, as of a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, actually, the American Heart Association ASCVD risk calculator got changed to the PREVENT calculator. So it includes renal function, which is really important for our population. It would be good for everyone's risk, because people don't generally die of kidney disease anymore. They die of heart disease when they have kidney disease, because it dramatically increases cardiac risk. And so we really need to go out and start screening people at an earlier age. And I would love to come to there and talk about how to do this, and because we've had some success, but obviously this would have to be at looking at these numbers, it would have to be at a much larger scale than us setting up a couple tables in a park during a Juneteenth celebration on the in the Black area of West End of Louisville. This would have to be a large countrywide and region-wide kind of initiative. But I think that's what we really would need to be able to do, because it is all the data says that it's about risk factors. And the Inner Heart study actually said, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit about the United States as well, that a lot of this is actually due to poor awareness and failure to adopt healthy lifestyle choices by patients and doctors. And so the pressure is on us to do better. And if we do better, our families do better, that spreads by proxy and experience to other people around us. That affects our community. We impress our patients more, because I mean, the last time we looked at the United States, the leading cause of death of cardiologists was heart disease. And so and that's because we're not doing the kind of intervention on lifestyle that we need to do. Okay, so earlier age and lower threshold. Okay. Now, what are we doing in India with a lot of innovation in India? Sure, this started in the United States, but it spread to India pretty quickly. And this is what you're seeing. Massive amount of stents. In Pakistan, it was the bypass surgery. In India, it's stenting. And I have so many South Asian, wonderfully talented um, trainees, residents, and cardiology fellows. And if they say they want to go back home to India, they always want to be an interventional cardiologist. And they say, they've actually told me, if you're not an interventional cardiologist, you're not a cardiologist. Wow. And so what's wrong with that? Is it saving lives? Well, I can tell you that the ischemia trial in the United States showed that if it wasn't a stent of a left main or a proximal left anterior descending, those arteries high up, you actually weren't saving lives. You were opening arteries, but you weren't changing outcomes. But then there's the whole philosophy, which is shown here, that we're basically mopping up the floor. Yeah, with a couple of Indian companies I know, making fancier stents, the mops are getting better. Okay, but they're still mops. And at some point, we have to actually start to turn off the faucet. So if you look around the world, particularly in the United States, but if you look around the world, dietary risk is the #1 cause of poor health. We do not eat the number of vegetables and fruits that we should, and we eat the things that we shouldn't. We have obesity issues in both countries, more obesity in the United States, more overweight and central obesity in India. And there is a nice racial breakdown, which is shown on these slides, going from the Caucasian population to our Hispanic population to our African-American population. And that does relate to mortality. I haven't seen specific data for this kind of analysis. And so I'm showing you a lot of things that I have, obviously I have some data on South Asia, but I also have questions about South Asia that I think that would be great to do, prospective trials and public health trials looking at like obesity-related cardiovascular mortality. Because to be honest, the reason I'm showing this slide is this one is kind of strange in the United States. The Hispanic population is more obese than the white population, but they live longer. They have more diabetes, more amputations, more dialysis, and yet they live longer. Black population, not at all. The African-American population has a huge impact of obesity on mortality. And so it'd be great to see those kinds of analyses. This is another analysis that I left in my talk, talking to folks in India, because it was so helpful in the United States to try to break this down. Dietary pattern matters. That's what the regards people at the University of Alabama said. And they kindly referred to this red line where people are falling off a cliff in terms of surviving relative to their diet. They call it the Southern diet, but what they really mean is the soul food diet, which is common, inherited from slavery days, and we're still eating what Dr. Columbus Batiste at Kaiser calls the slave food. And it's really where you put greens are great, but you put a lot of meat in it. Yams are great, but candied yams, too much sugar. Sweet tea instead of non-sweetened beverages. And the result is very clear. More heart disease, more kidney disease, and more stroke. But we also have fast food, which is growing in India as well, as the Indian population increases the amount of Western culture. You end up with more of the kinds of things. There's nothing on this slide which has any benefit. Since they didn't show a tomato, they showed ketchup, which has high fructose corn syrup. The potatoes are fried. The burger is refined grains, and there's a sugar-sweetened beverage with meat in the middle. And so this is what's happening all over the world, and particularly in our cultures. So what's wrong with the kind of food that you see in India? And I can talk about it because we don't normally talk about manuscripts that are in preparation, but I finished the data collection, so I can just, not going to show you slides on it, but just to say, we have done 390 restaurants in 24 countries, analyzing the menus on so-called vegan and vegetarian, because there's so many Indian people who categorize themselves as vegan vegetarian. And it turns out that within that space, there's a lot of fried food, there's a lot of refined grains, and there's a lot of saturated fat. Saturated fat is coming from a lot of the curries. So many of the things that are scrumptious. That second bullet point here, fried food increases your dopamine release because it just tastes so good. Okay. And you can try to make it healthier, so decrease the amount of saturated fat. But as long as there's ghee, there's going to be a substantial amount of saturated fat. So, so I kind of had to, we did that analysis. The analysis didn't look good of all these restaurants. Very few restaurants have more than 7 choices that are healthy. And most are selling the things that are going to keep them in business, which are fried foods, saturated fat, and refined grains. So what's wrong with those? So if you look carefully, one second. If you look carefully, the frying animal products has always been bad. The polyaromatic hydrocarbons, heterocycloamines, when you cook things at high heat are for animal protein, animal fat, that actually increases cancer a lot. But it also increases the amount of fat. That is, a potato has 0.32 grams of fat per 100 grams of potato. Once you fry it into a French fry, then it's 32 grams. So it's multiplying it by 100. That increases central obesity. And that overall obesity is our pattern in the United States. Central obesity is more in the Indian population, where you see actually relatively thin people with this metabolic elevated circumference, waist circumference, with insulin resistance. And so as the fat content isn't something that's good. And you can try, changing the oil. And yes, it is good to change to a canola oil or an olive oil or some kind of oil that is low in saturated fat. Question about that. It's better, but it's still calories. And so no question that if you look, you don't have to look too far to find evidence that fried food increases the risk of death. So refined, but against the grain. Okay, so we struggle with how good refined grains taste. And I've had South Asian patients where I say, or Filipina or East Asian patients where I say, white rice is dangerous. We've got to, change to a brown rice or a black rice, a forbidden rice, purple rice. And the response is just, to be honest, it's like I'm telling them that their parents did them wrong, and that all their grandparents were wrong, and it's very difficult to overcome culture. But the data on refined grains is very clear that it increases cardiovascular events, higher blood pressure, increasing insulin levels, and the way to get around it is whole grains. More fiber content. If we replace the whole grain, the refined grains with whole grains, it's important. And why is this important? Is because we keep hearing things that association of grains with mortality. The H.E.A.R.T trial is very wonderful and focused. I mean, sure, there were the sites in Canada and the like, but it was mostly about the South Asian. That was sort of the center, with Salim Yusuf as the lead. And they were the ones coming out saying that saturated fat was safer than carbohydrates. I said, Salim, don't you mean refined grains? Okay, that is, if you look at whole grains, they decrease mortality in all of the world's literature. So he went back, looked at the data, and then published this one. And absolutely, it's really about refined grains that increase the risk of mortality and cardiovascular disease. So the saturated fat controversy shouldn't have been a controversy. I mean, it was very clear that it was associated with increasing mortality, and it increases LDL cholesterol, as well as being fat, which increases obesity and diabetes. And so no question that it was harmful, but it was questioned. And there were a lot of things 10 years ago saying butter is back and challenging the existing science. Well, this is what I'd like to leave you with. That is, the data is so very clear. The more saturated fat you eat, which basically comes from animal products, but also comes from coconut oil and palm oil, they will increase saturated fat. Now, people will argue that plant-based saturated fat is not as bad as animal-based. That is actually true. It's been studied, and the increase in LDL is about half as much, but it still increases LDL. And so why not go for monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fat if you are the body shape that can actually tolerate fat content in the diet? And so this is an article that was so interesting to look at from a few years ago. What's wrong with we've talked a lot of things about the diet on the south side of Chicago and in India. Well, the bottom line is that you basically have high disease burden. 73 million cases of diabetes is the most. India is apparently the most diabetic country, with as I mentioned before, normal BMI, which I don't see that on the south side of Chicago or the west end of Louisville. Normal BMI, body mass index, and yet metabolically unhealthy. And the whole idea is that 70% of the Indian diet is carbohydrate. And if we could just utilize that away from sugar and flour-based, that's refined flours. And it's not about starches, it's about refined starches, loaves of bread, but refined bread as opposed to a whole grain bread and white rice. If we could change those things, we could really make a difference, it would seem. So anyway, that's a lot of background on India and the United States and the vulnerable populations with a lot of cardiovascular disease. I want to spend a few minutes talking about the underlying data that tells us that we really can make a difference. We can change everything if we change the nutrition. So I'll talk about it from these 5 lenses. The obesity data is very clear. If people have increased weight and they do a whole food plant-based diet, in this study years ago, this was the Dean Ornish diet, and they compared several popular diets at the time, and they all lose weight. Why? Because they all decrease calories. But the one that had the most sustained weight loss was the Dean Ornish. And 12 months is not what you're looking for. You won't want your patients to live 12 months. You want them to live for decades. And the best way to do that is a whole food plant-based diet. There's, interestingly enough, a few months ago, so I stuck this one in here, the Obesity Society published this article about genetics and with susceptibility to obesity, and say, because some people have a bad diet and they'll, stay thin, and other people have a meat in their diet and their cholesterol will go up, they'll have a heart attack, but, and their weight will go up, but other people are thin and still have heart disease. So they looked at all of the genetic influences in this genome-wide association study from Canada, and guess what they found? It's not your genes, it's what you eat. If you're eating meat, you end up with a high level of obesity. So how about blood pressure? Excuse me. So blood pressure, this data is actually very old, and it's long been true. If you take people who are omnivores and you turn them to a whole food plant-based diet, their blood pressure will fall, no question about it. One of the best evidences ever was the DASH diet, where you cut the sodium, put in a lot of minerals instead for taste, and get people to adhere to that for a long period of time to see what happens over 8-week periods of blood pressure. And even they were able to notice that if you did a more vegan or vegetarian DASH, which is low in fat and 0 cholesterol, that's when you got the dramatic decrease in the blood pressure. How about cholesterol? So the interesting part of going from an omnivore diet to a vegan or vegetarian diet is that you can see some dramatic decreases in LDL cholesterol, despite what many of us were taught in medical school, that it's all genetic. And the article that I was pulling about India, the gentleman said that the eggs don't increase your LDL cholesterol. That's just not the case. That's what the egg board would have us believe, but it actually isn't the case. When you change to a whole food plant-based diet, the cholesterol will drop. So we've actually had really good data for a long time showing that. And then we've had some more recent randomized trials that were all put together a few months ago, published in the European Heart Journal, that made it very clear that your total cholesterol will go down dramatically if you do a vegan or vegetarian diet. How about diabetes? And this is so particularly important for the Indian population and our Hispanic population in the United States. That type 2 diabetes is rising in both populations. And the fact of the matter is, if you do a whole food plant-based diet intervention, please see this, a 37% remission of diabetes within 6 months. Now, you could say 37% is not a lot, but that would be tremendous. Everybody's improving, but 37%, they're actually gone. And, so we have a little challenge on this these days because of our SGLT2 inhibitors and our GLP-1 agonists. These medications are so incredible. They have just great cardiovascular benefit. And folks are saying, we don't need lifestyle anymore. We just have these pills. Well, first of all, those pills are very expensive. So what does that do? That means that our middle class and upper class financially can actually afford them, and the poorer people are not. I have poorer people in Louisville trying to go to some compounding pharmacy to try to get these drugs at a cut rate because the cost of drugs are so much higher here in the United States than they are in India and other places. So I don't believe that drugs are the answer. I don't believe that even though they're helpful, I wouldn't want to rely solely on the newest and fanciest mop. The data on this remission is so remarkable, and usually show a forest plot. Well, a couple of times I will, but you got to see this one. I mean, it was basically everyone. It didn't reach statistically significant in the diabetics who were not overweight, but the trend was there, and if the population had been larger, that probably would have reached statistical significance as well. So it's basically everyone improves with a plant-based diet in diabetes. So we have more and more data indicating that, and I would hope that we could reproduce this kind of information all around the world. This is actually a multi-country style or study that made it very clear that you're going to lower the diabetes risk tremendously if you do a healthful plant-based diet. The vegetarian diet and cardiovascular risk actually goes down tremendously. So it's not just about the diabetes, it's about the LDL and of course the diabetes, hemoglobin A1C and body weight, and all of them working together. But I don't want to leave out inflammation. So this has been ignored for so many years, and it's a little hard to explain. At least in the United States, it was about Paul Ridker coming out with the Jupiter trial showing that you could reduce LDL and inflammation and save a lot of lives. That was in early 2000s. And Paul had actually patented the high sensitivity C-reactive protein. And so he got a lot of criticism saying that he was just trying to create this science to make himself and Harvard a lot of money. But, he persisted, and he's done multiple trials. All of them show the same thing, that inflammatory risk increases. And everybody knows that. It happened with COVID. It happened with flu. People's plaque gets upset when it's full of LDL and inflammation. And when people get sick, whether tooth abscess or whatever is going on that increases their inflammation, it increases their cardiac events. So this is a study from almost a year ago, published at the last American College of Cardiology meeting, where he took 3 trials, put them together, that had statin-treated people, but also had the C-reactive protein. And what he found was stunning, that if you had gotten the LDL cholesterol down, less than 70 milligrams per deciliter, but you did not have a reduction in the high sensitivity C-reactive protein, you were still inflamed, that your cardiovascular risk was almost double. So that residual inflammatory risk is actually very dangerous, and people with an elevated CRP really need to you need to go to the next level. So what is that next level? Of course, he convinced with this data, he convinced the Food and Drug Administration of the United States to approve colchicine. Well, okay, that's just another mop. Okay, how about this? This is the portfolio diet from University of Toronto, published 21 years ago in Journal of American Medical Association, showing that, yeah, statins can lower LDL and C-reactive protein. But a whole food plant-based diet that's high in fiber, in this case, it was like Metamucil or psyllium fiber, can dramatically lower both. The inflammation goes down a little faster. And now, looking back 21 years later, we know exactly why. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. But lest I be accused of quoting really old data, Benita Shaw at the NYU did the same kind of study, intervening on people who actually had just had stenting of their coronary arteries and agreed to go on a vegan or American Heart Association diet back before we changed the guidelines, which I'll mention in a few. Back then, it was lowering the red meat, eating a lot of fish and chicken or poultry. And that still has animal products, and it still causes inflammation. And they did not see a substantial decrease in the C-reactive protein, as opposed to the vegan diet, which had a marked reduction in C-reactive protein, just like David Jenkins' University of Toronto portfolio diet. Okay, so what's the underpinning all of this? It's actually the microbiome. And so you may have heard some of this before, but if you haven't, it's really important to recognize that we are not all human. Human cells are actually only about 43% of the body. The rest of us is actually made up of the DNA of all kinds of organisms, bacteria, fungus, and the like. And the ones in the gut's microbiome control so much of what is happening to you, how you digest food, how you deal with medications, whether or not you have good or bad host immunity. It can change your neurologic system, and as well as cardiovascular. And a lot of folks because the science has gotten so big in the last 5 years, a lot of folks are actually trying to do microbiome-directed interventions. And some of them are targeted, like trying to bioengineer things. Some are sort of, well, fecal transplants. Well, in the United States, that's common when your spouse has Clostridium difficile, and after antibiotics, you can actually do a fecal transplant and cure that person from your spouse, typically. But how about just prebiotics? Because the probiotics haven't really worked so far. A lot of them get killed in the gastric acidity. And so taking bacteria to change to really good bacteria would be really great if they actually work. And I'm no doubt that at some point they will work. But right now, prebiotic is the thing to do, which is a whole food plant-based diet. So looking at our 5 areas or 5 foci, the hypertension data is actually very clear. Loads of articles showing that we know which bacteria in your GI tract increase your blood pressure and which ones increase your alpha diversity, increase your short chain fatty acids and are anti-inflammatory and make things better. For cholesterol, it's all about caprostanol. If you have the right bacteria in your GI system, the ones that actually have the ISMA enzymes, you will actually take your cholesterol and change it to caprostanol, and that will end up going out in the stool, not into your arteries. How about diabetes? This is a really growing area, identifying species after species of the microbiota that actually increase or decrease the amount of diabetes. And you'll see articles like this one with plots like this one. They look like they're all over the place, but actually it's not. Are the bacteria improving your glucose insulin homeostasis, decreasing your inflammation, increasing fatty acid oxidation and energy expenditure? Is it worsening gut permeability? And the ones in blue are making things better. The ones in red are making things worse. And so I would say that the best thing that we could do is a whole food plant-based diet and make our red bacteria go more blue. But in the absence of that, people could start actually measuring these and try to give people personalized information about their microbiome as another tool to try to get them to change to the better lifestyle. Very similar data in obesity. We have very similar to the diabetes and the hypertension. It's all about short-chain fatty acid production, and fecal transplants have been shown in obesity to really make a difference. If you take a thin person and give them a fecal transplant from an obese person, they develop obesity, and vice versa is true as well. And so what does it take to change our microbiome? Whole food plant-based diet. And it just takes really just a matter of a couple to 4 weeks. You can improve the diversity and put more beneficial bacteria into your microbiome. Now, one of the mechanisms for since this is a cardiology talk, I have to talk about one of the products of the microbiome, and that's TMAO, trimethylamine N oxide. And so this came out years ago in the New England Journal of Medicine. I was just happy as a vegan to wake up and see this in the New England Journal of Medicine, where they're saying that these animal components actually lead to cardiovascular disease. And I thought the world would change. Unfortunately, Cleveland Clinic may be powerful, but it wasn't powerful enough to change, the egg board and the dairy industry and the Cattlemen's Association here. They have just kept going undaunted. Well, I mean, I think we have about 3%. 3 to 5% vegan vegetarian people who aren't doing these, but I can tell you that the science from Wilson Tang and Stan Hazen at Cleveland Clinic has just progressed tremendously. It's not just about atherosclerosis, it's heart failure, it's kidney disease, it's brain disease, all of them related to trimethylamine N oxide. What do we need to change or to decrease your TMAO level? We need to actually decrease your red meat intake, and that will fix it in about 4 weeks, no question about it. Okay, now if the relationship between TMAO and disease, it's been challenged. It's not that they don't trust that they don't think Cleveland Clinic is making it up. They're thinking that perhaps they're misinterpreting an association with causality. Well, they've actually shown a lot of correlations, blood pressure, in this case, insulin resistance and diabetes. The higher your TMAO level, things go badly for your risk factors. So it's not surprising that you end up with more in the way of heart attack, stroke, and death, and heart failure, death, if you have a high TMAO level. It does explain this phenomenon of red meat consumption and mortality, which we've known for so long, that red meat kills, processed red meat kills faster. It's cardiovascular disease, it's cancer mortality, it's dose related, and in the Nurses' Health Study, and it focuses on ischemic heart disease, but it isn't completely confined to that. Red meat increases, if it's not processed, increasing mortality by 9%. Processed red meat, double that. And for coronary disease, particularly in men, because so many men eat so much red meat, it's a much higher association. Now, this one is actually showing something that I just want to spend a moment talking about because it's kind of a shock. This was the first article that I saw that said that fish was not that good for you. So for decades, the American Heart Association was saying fish and quoting the Mediterranean diet, which I'll go into in just a few. But this was the Harvard analysis of dietary patterns and mortality. And what they basically said is that poultry decreases, the idea is, what protein can you do to substitute for red meat since red meat is so bad? And does that improve your mortality or not? And the answer was that poultry improved mortality as a trend, not statistically significant, okay? Fish increased mortality. Again, that's a trend, not statistically significant. Eggs didn't reach the significance. Dairy actually did improve, but nuts, beans, soy, plant proteins, those were all dramatically improved, with the best being soy. So what's wrong with fish? We've been knowing this for decades. Well, the answer partly is that the fish are not the same fish. This was from a couple weeks ago, that microplastics are causing cardiovascular disease, early stroke, early death, and heart attack. And this is really it hit the press, but it had actually come out in a documentary called Eating Ourselves to Extinction back last year in 2023. The whole idea is that the plastics are actually being consumed by the fish, and then those fish get consumed by other fish. And the more fish eat fish, and then people eat the fish that ate the fish. Next thing you know, our human arteries actually have the plastics in large amounts. And so this microplastic exposure published a couple of weeks ago it's an immune problem, it's a cytotoxic problem, and there's no question that irregular shape actually predicts cell death. So we've got to add that to the list of things that we know are toxic. On top of that list is still going to be processed red meat. Unprocessed is not good for you, but for heart failure, processed red meat increases heart failure incidence by 243%, which is tremendously high. We also know that if you do a whole food plant-based diet, that your heart failure actually will go down dramatically. I don't see a lot of heart failure clinics saying the first thing you do is go on a whole food plant-based diet, and they all should. I did mention about the eggs and how it didn't reach statistical significance. In this study, it actually did. This is the egg mortality. It was interesting that was published by one of these authors, one of the senior authors is Don Lloyd Jones, who was president of the American Heart Association when it came out. And the American Heart Association actually gets funding from the Egg Board. And so this is, it was more than a little controversial. What he's basically saying, if you're eating more than half an egg, you're increasing your death rate. And so it's a linear relationship. So, and obviously it goes through zero. And so the ordinate and abscissa meet each other at zero, so I would never eat them. They said that it was American data, that it was confounded by, Egg McMuffins, that's refined grain, plus Canadian bacon and all this stuff. So the Italians published it soon thereafter, and it basically didn't say a half an egg. It said 4 eggs a week. Oops, that's half an egg. And so it's basically the same. And all of that goes along with eggs not being safe. And that was shown first that I saw was this study from 2016 from the Harvard group, Public Health, talking about doctors and nurses who had at least one unhealthy risk factor. And what they said is that all-cause mortality was related to poultry and fish consumption a little bit, that dairy was a little worse, that red meat was a little worse than dairy, eggs a little worse than red meat, and processed red meat was by far the worst. And so people didn't really want to take that. And it was really gutsy, I think, of JAMA to publish the same title 3 years later with the same idea. What happens if you substitute 3% of your animal protein with vegetable protein? And the answer was basically the same, except that this was actually from Japan. It wasn't from the United States. And particularly cardiovascular disease, no safe animal products. They published that title a third time, believe it or not. And this time it was our NIH AARP study, again, showing that, and the concept was the same. What happens if you take your data and model a 3% substitution of plant protein versus animal protein? And the bottom line was that there are no safe animal products. The red meat increased all kinds of diseases, including cardiovascular, so did eggs. And so the data that we've seen subsequent to that all agrees with it. The more animal protein you eat, the more mortality you get. And it's true of pretty much every category of animal protein, whereas plant protein is inversely associated with all-cause mortality. And so the data is actually very strong. You would like to see everyone make this switch, particularly all-cause mortality. They said they couldn't explain that trend about cancer, but it wasn't statistically significant, but all the rest were, that you're protecting dementia, cardiovascular mortality, and all-cause mortality by switching to plants. I do have to mention the whole idea of unhealthy plant-based diets, and I'll do that in two ways. Number one, a high carbohydrate diet, based on the data I was showing you already, is associated with increased mortality. And if you do a low-carb diet, your diabetes gets better, your blood pressure goes down, your weight goes down, and therefore that's supposed to be healthy. Well, it turns out that's not exactly true, because all of those risk factors will improve, but it's not healthier. If you do it with animal products, you will increase your mortality by 18%. If you do it with plants like peanut butter, whole grains, low amounts of refined grains, so that you're not getting a lot of refined carbohydrates, your mortality goes down. And so this Sarah Seidelman plot tried to settle the argument on how much does a keto diet kill you. It really depends on how keto it is. But on the other side, high carbohydrate, again, because people were doing refined carbohydrates, are not safe. Now, we also have to talk about doing things with plants that are not good for you, such as frying them and removing the fiber in a factory, and taking juices and sweetened beverages. They may be vegan, but they're not healthy. And so, and sweets, we get a lot of that. I do the point of care cholesterol testing that I mentioned. I don't do it just in the parks and the celebrations. I actually do it in the clinic as well. And you get those triglyceride of 500, and you say, well, what did you eat in the last 24 hours? And there's always going to be a cake, a pie, cookies, ice cream, that sort of stuff. And some of those are vegan, but they're not healthy. And so I know my animal rights colleagues who are vegan, and the planet sustainability colleagues. Hi, Maddie. Good to see you. So they're never really happy when I say this out loud, but here's the data. That dotted line is an unhealthy plant-based diet. It's actually higher in heart disease than eating animals. So I tell them it's really good for the planet to eat those vegan beignets and vegan donuts because it gets rid of humans. So they don't like that at all. But I do want to go back, and I promised you a little discussion of the Mediterranean diet. Okay, so, and that has to do with the fact that U.S. News Report, World Report, every year, I could have just swapped this out from a few weeks ago, keeps saying that the Mediterranean diet is the #1 diet. And it's a complete misrepresentation of what was in the New England Journal of Medicine 5 years or 6 years ago. This was one of the best diet trials that was ever performed, and it was very clear. You look at that upper left-hand corner, this has been shown all over, that you end up with a 30% decrease in heart attack, stroke, and death if you go from the controlled diet, predominantly with red meat, to a fish-based with a little poultry, very little red meat, so occasional extra virgin olive oil, and splitting the two groups into extra virgin olive oil or supplemental nuts. And what they failed to look at is just look at panel B. Total mortality actually wasn't changed between the three, but more importantly, look at table 3. Let's blow that up. That heart attack, stroke, and death, 30%, was actually driven by stroke. Dramatic reduction, okay? When you quit eating red meat and you go to fish, whether it's you have olive oil or nuts, didn't matter. Your stroke rate was going to go down, but your heart attack rate was the same. Your death for cardiovascular causes was the same. Your death from any cause was the same. So I'm saying this is really not the diet that you want for cardiovascular, maybe for neurology, but not for cardiology. And so they're friends of mine. I said, why didn't you guys, you did the perfect study. Why didn't you do a vegan group or something? so we could actually see this. And the answer was, well, we could analyze it, and they did. And it turns out that the vegetarian arm, not arm, but the vegetarian pattern, they were able to analyze it by just looking at their food frequency. What did people eat? And if you were in the top 2 quintiles of vegetarian consumption, of vegetable consumption, it was a 42% decrease in death. That really should have been the message. Got buried in an off journal and doesn't get seen by U.S. News and World Report. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about cardiorenal disease because this is something that I see a lot of in our area, and I'm not seeing a lot of nephrologists who understand this. Animal protein is toxic to kidneys. This data has been out here for 4 years, and there are very few nephrologists. All of the ones who work for me at University of Louisville understand it. And Cal Irvine, they understand it. The people who are doing these articles understand it, but most people are not changing, telling you when you have chronic kidney disease, stop eating animal protein. This inverse relationship between plant protein and incidence of kidney disease is important. And on top of that, red meat is the worst. It actually leads to end-stage renal disease in a dose-dependent manner. So if you want to go on dialysis, eat red meat. And so why is it? It's Cleveland Clinic's TMAO. The higher the level, the more mortality and chronic kidney disease. And if you can change it with the intervention, plant-based diet can actually help you manage chronic kidney disease, decreasing all of the risk factors that complicate chronic kidney disease. The metabolic acidosis, the BUN and creatinine rise, all of them actually are less if you do a plant-based diet. Doing an intervention with soy protein will take your stage 3B people and your stage 4 people and send the creatinine backwards, not just because of the decrease in creatine, but because you're actually improving the nephron's function. So this was actually 3 years ago, a plea from our National Kidney Foundation to all the nephrologists to put people on a plant-based diet, largely unheeded, unfortunately. I'm going to spend just a moment talking about COVID. We're almost done with it, I hope, but I hope that it stands for the next pandemic. Everybody needs to know this. People who are doing a plant-based diet had less COVID. I kind of got annoying. I know I see Madi there, and so I know she knows some of these people I'm talking about. Our friends who are plant-based talking about don't get the vaccine. Well, the odds were that you weren't going to get very sick and you weren't going to die. And the vaccine does have some side effects, and you don't know whether you're going to be the side effect or you're going to, but when you look at large amounts of data, it was very protective to get it. But I understand, after looking at this data, I understand why there was a controversy, because what we were saying is that people who were on a plant-based diet had a 73% decrease in the amount of moderate to severe illness, okay? And so, and it temporarily put a hold on the keto wars because people who were eating a keto diet had a dramatic increase in their COVID illness. Published a few months ago, or a few weeks ago, in the British Medical Journal was this one, which was a shock. I thought that us vegans would get COVID and get less sick, but they're saying that we had 40% less COVID, which is a dramatic improvement. And COVID incidents, I didn't even consider that. And so maybe there was something to the anti-vaxxers, but I still think that for population health, it was the best thing to do. So as I'm closing, I want to just say that we've actually had out there for about 4 years what I think is the answer that's going on 5 years now for primary prevention of cardiovascular disease. I was pleased to be in the room with all those smart people. I was the one writing the nutrition section, trying to change the AHA diet away from animal products. We struggled a little bit. Got vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, whole grains, and then somehow fish swam into my guidelines. Well, I walked in the room and they said, "We read your section as too vegetarian." I said, "What do you mean too vegetarian? It's evidence-based." And they said, "Well, you have to have fish." I said, "Well, why would we have fish?" And because of the stroke prevention. American Heart Association is a stroke organization. Okay, that's checkmate. So fish ended up in the guidelines, but I got them back. Okay. Decreasing saturated fat, decreasing cholesterol and sodium, fish has cholesterol. So if we're going to reduce it to 0, that means no fish. All right. Well, anyway, minor victory. Process very clear. Refined carbohydrates and sweetened beverages, nowhere near. If we could change those fundamentals, we would improve our cardiovascular outcomes. And so we've actually shown some vulnerable populations, because I know our South Asian population is very vulnerable. And I would love to see these kind of interventions done. So I'm just going to show you a couple. Here's the Million Veterans Program, where the veterans have poor diets. And what they were able to show is if you give a veteran, a white veteran in the United States, a plant-based diet, you will see a dramatic decrease in their incidence of cardiovascular risk. If you do it for a more vulnerable veteran, an African-American, you'll see even more decrease. Why? Because this number is going to improve dramatically compared to the non-intervention group, because our diets are so bad. You also might see I know you have Netflix, okay? And so you might want to see the twin study that you are what you eat. It actually talked about that twin study showing dramatic improvement in all the risk factors, except the triglycerides. The triglycerides going up in the vegans, that's a classic thing. It means too much refined carbs. But the LDL still went down, and so a lot of things got better. Doing interventions in vulnerable populations, it happened with the Adventist health studies, that if you took your Black people who were supposed to be so bad in cardiovascular disease and so much risk, change them to a plant-based diet, you see dramatic drops in the incidence of risk factors. And we did this on the south side of Chicago at President Obama's old church. And that intervention, 5 weeks of vegan food, showed a dramatic reduction in insulin levels, TMAO, all of the cholesterol profiles, glucose, hemoglobin A1C, and high sensitivity C-reactive protein. It decreased their overall risk tremendously. And we have a nice, cookbook of whole food plant-based diet that, if you're interested, you can download it. Just because it's American Association of Black Cardiologists, it's a whole food plant-based diet, and it's a free cookbook. Before closing, or not closing, but opening it up for questions, I do want to mention something that was discussed earlier about our Indian population that we share. And that is what's on our plate as physicians, okay? And we actually did a survey of Loyola and Rush before I left Chicago, and it was very disappointing. What it basically said is that out of 274 physicians, 1 was eating a whole food plant-based diet, and a total of 11 were following the ACC/AHA guidelines, which included fish, okay? The rest were eating things that are known to increase mortality by a lot. So our own diets are unhealthy, and it's hard to imagine that we could positively affect our patients if our own diets have not been fixed. So I took pictures. I tend to do this at every medical meeting. This is processed red meat, World Health Organization Group 1 carcinogen, sausage and bacon, and eggs, which I showed you the mortality increase. And where was this? This was the American Society of Preventive Cardiology. So we are struggling. Bottom line is that we have heart disease, kidney disease, stroke, COVID, all of these things that have bad outcomes because of lifestyle choices. And sure, we have exorbitant healthcare costs in the United States and increasing mortality at a young age in India. And all of it could be reduced if we did a whole food plant-based diet. I would say that everyone in both of our societies should be thinking about prevention and nutrition. And if we do that, improve the microbiome, we will reduce mortality dramatically. All right, and with that, I'll leave a couple minutes for questions.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. William. I'm not sure if I'm audible.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay. I'm Dr. Pratima Kini, and I'm also a lifestyle a medicine physician practicing in Bangalore. Thank you so much for such a comprehensive, informative, with so many studies and in relation to the Indian population. It was such a pleasure listening to you. We have a bunch of questions. Let me start off with the first one. How much, since you have spoken about the fat content increasing when you deep fry potatoes, the question is, what if you air fry potatoes?
Yes. So when you air fry, it doesn't do it. And by the way, the change in the fat content with stir frying is not bad either. It's very small. But air frying should be safer. And air frying, you can just use very, very small amounts in oil and still get that crisp. I don't know if you get the same amount of dopamine release, but you're not going to get the same amount of fat content. So it's got to be better.
I guess you just need to change your taste buds a little, and then you get adapted to it. Yeah. So next question is, what are your comments on the lipoprotein small a in the Indian population?
So, so I can tell you that this is becoming a big thing in terms of cardiology. We now have, why is it suddenly a big thing? Because we have drugs that are on clinical trials. And so there's two things that you have to know. One is that people's genetics are different. I haven't seen the ones that apply like we have in the United States for the African American population, which were that we tend to have higher LPA levels, and it doesn't tend to impact the population as much. And is that because it's being overwhelmed by other risk factors, or because it's not as much of a risk factor itself? That's what we need in the Indian population. We need to know that the LP(a) is not just prevalent, but it actually is important. So I'm much more of a coronary disease person than a lipidologist, but wait, I just realized you might actually have the answer. So do you want to share with the group? Anyone? So it looks like Ravi Kumar might have. Is the question on the table, is it more frequent to have high levels, and is it really impactful? Does it change outcomes?
Dr. G.R., would you like to take that question?
That's his question.
Yeah. Oh, too bad. Okay. All right. So I'll have to.
Dr. Williams.
That's a good question. I would love to know why, because we are putting on. So my chief of cardiology here at University of Louisville, and he actually was my director of the infiltrative cardiomyopathy clinic when I was at Rush. And so then he took the chief job, and then I came in to be his boss again. Well, Dinesh Kalra, wonderful guy. We are going to put on an ethnicity and cardiovascular risk, and he is the one running our LA trial, but he's not really running it in South Asian. So I'll have to get with him and ask.
Yeah, Doc, this is Dr. Rajendran. I'm a plant-based cardiologist based in India. So
Great.
This was because we have always been told, mainly by ENAs and ENAs, that that's a major reference for us on LPA. So we have been doing it, and we have actually been seeing very high levels in CAD patients. So unfortunately, we don't have a solution for that. That's the main reason why I took it up.
I see. So I can tell you that, and so you're talking about the LP(a) in
That's right. That's right.
In the Indian population. So I can tell you that the reports were that it's not diet sensitive, it's all genetic. Turns out in that study that we did, the intervention, and one that Baxter Montgomery did in Blacks in the South of the United States, both showed a 10% decrease in LP(a). Now you could say if the numbers are really bad, 10% isn't that much, but if there's a linear relationship like there is with LDL and risk, then 10% may be helpful.
That's fine, but what happens is majority of our patients are on statins when they come, and we all are given to understand statins actually increase LPA.
They increase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's reason. That's when the main question comes. Some of them are really educated, so
Right.
that's why I asked. Yeah.
So yeah, so part of the problem is that with PCSK9 inhibitors dramatically lower LP little a. The problem is that they don't actually lower inflammation like statins do. So they both lower LDL and then a +1. Probably the best combination, which is what we're using in people with heterozygous or homozygous familial hyperlipidemia, is the combination statin and PCSK9 inhibition.
Thanks, Dr. William. Can I ask my question?
Sure.
Thanks for the knowledge you have discussed. And can you throw some light on how dairy product triggers autoimmune reaction? What is the mechanism involved?
So I think Dr. Maddie wants to answer that one. I'm not much of an immunologist. All I hear is bad reports, like our childhood diabetes, for example, is all due to dairy. So I saw her raise her hand. So I'm going to stay in the cardiovascular arena. And I don't know.
The question is about immune health and the microbiome, right? Is it about you're talking about the microbiome and autoimmune? What is the question exactly? I want to know the ask so I can give you an answer.
Well, I could ask it from my point of view, but that is,
yeah, sure.
The reports that milk.
The question is,
so all animal
how dairy product triggers autoimmune reaction?
Okay. So yeah, so milk proteins, like including like casein or whey, they are highly acidic. And from my understanding, our microbiome is full of microbiota, trillions upon trillions of microorganisms that really thrive on whole plant foods. And when we are giving our body like dairy or acidic proteins like that, they disrupt our microbiome. And additionally, we're also breathing in toxins. And I'm sure you've all heard of a company called maybe Monsanto or Roundup or Weed Killer. I mean, dairy, all of these toxins, all of these animal products, they disrupt our microbiome. What's the reason? This is what I have learned with my my last few years of research and working with regenerative health practitioners and vegan holistic nutritionists, is that we have in our gut, we have actually tight junctions that seal the gut wall. They're tight junctions, and then we have these microvilli that absorb nutrition. But what happens when we are consuming toxins like glyphosate, which is the active ingredient of Roundup, which is sprayed on most GMO crops around the world, we are actually consuming like this glyphosate here, the glyphosate, and even animal products, they disrupt the microbiome. And also glyphosate, it actually causes holes in the the tight junctions. So what happens is that all of these toxins actually enter the bloodstream. So that's toxemia, and that toxemia it's only been prevalent in the last 20 years. So that it manifests in a lot of inflammatory and autoimmune conditions throughout the body. So I've had something like plantar fasciitis. My foot was a mess. Like I just stopped dancing. I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer. I just stopped dancing. So that was 5 years ago. I was gaining all this weight. I talked to Dr. Williams, hey, my foot is, because he's an avid tennis player. And I was like, I can't perform anymore. What do I do? So this vegan holistic nutritionist from Canada, Punjabi Canadian, she found me on Instagram and she told me there's this company that actually has a solution for the glyphosate toxicity. And also, we have to stick to a whole food plant-based nutrition. So what happens is that when I started consuming these vegan superfoods, there's a product called Biomedic, which is available in US, Canada, and now Europe, that actually seals the tight junctions. So in 10 days, I was able to reverse my foot damage, the inflammation in my body. And also in a few months, I was able to knock off all this excess weight that I had. So yes, there's definitely a correlation between animal products, toxins, our gut microbiome, and like the absorption. And when you're not absorbing nutrition, you are absolutely, unfortunately, there's really no point. You're just bloating up your your stomach and your gut, and like you're getting inflamed, and and all the processed foods, either whether they're vegan or not, are affecting your body and disrupting your microbiome even further. And remember, the microbiome, your gut is like your second brain, because it's a source of dopamine, and also it is a source of serotonin. So there's a gut-brain connection that happens. And I know that after I started this program, this vegan program, this clean program, holistic nutrition, my brain fog a lot of it has lifted. I was very foggy. I was vegan in 2018, but 2019 onwards, I had many, many issues. But finally, I'm like extremely grateful that I'm back to dancing. I'm dancing with people who are half my age and at a competitive level. And I'm only like looking forward to more and more healing and learning.
Congrats on that.
Thank you so much.
Shankar has a
Thank you.
question.
Thank you, Dr. Madhuri. Can we go on with the next question?
Dr. Shankar?
Yeah.
One related question, if you permit.
I'm also a nuclear medicine physician. My focus has also recently been into functional medicine. To answer that question on lactose, and then I have a question for you. We do these GI map testing, which kind of shows the dysbiotic or the eubiotic pattern. And based on that, there's a lot of research coming on, particularly the bifidobacterium. This kind of indicates the adaptation of the colonic microbiota. And on repetitive consumption, it has an influence on the gas formation or in the gut of certain individuals. And there's some new data coming, linking that to the LNP genotype as well. So there's a lot happening in this field. My question to you, Dr. Williams, was I myself am a nuclear medicine physician. I was more focused in nuclear cardiology. We were the first people to get the rubidium license in California when I was working there many years.
Great.
Now I'm based out of Bangalore, South India, and trying to have an integrative approach in the clinical, corporate system. How do you? I've been struggling with trying to incorporate lifestyle medicine into the setup. How do you do it? And it would be great if I can connect with you and get some advice on that.
Well, it's just interesting. Yeah, it's like my life as a nuclear cardiologist. I really changed from taking pictures of the water overflowing the faucet to see how bad things were. That's basically what we were doing in nuclear cardiology. I'm not saying it wasn't important. It was critically important to quantify it, if you can design which mop you're going to use to. But it's such a different thing than trying to go back in time and stop it from happening, so you never need to take the pictures. Incorporating into a clinical practice is something that we are all struggling with, and that is I'm actually, another manuscript that I'm working on now is my sort of personal response to seeing how doctors, 4 years after we had written those guidelines, were not adopting good, healthy lifestyles. And so I did what everybody does. I asked ChatGPT, what's wrong with us? If whole food, plant-based diet can decrease animal cruelty, save the planet, decrease our healthcare budget, save lives, and save illness, why aren't we all doing it? And it gave really 10 good answers. And so those answers are all about culture, cost, education, history, taste. And we have to, so when you're asking, how do you incorporate that? I have to go into my clinic now with all of those things in my head. That is, some of the patients are going to change immediately. Me, I know I'm Black, over 60, male, had a high cholesterol before I went vegan. I know my risk is so high. And because I was doing CPR and I was doing stents and I was, taking care of the patients in the CCU who were in cardiogenic shock, I never want to be the guy on the table, right? So It's easy for me that, if there's a study that says that, 10W30 motor oil will save my arteries, I'll drink it. As opposed to other people are saying that their taste and what they're eating is so much more important to them. It's completely, but I have to understand that that's where they are. So knowing where your patient is, I would say that that's the number one thing with that long explanation, and understanding the cultural influences that we're up against. And again, for me and my South Asian population, it's not easy to change, particularly the white rice. And so, and when I had a University of Chicago professor tell me I would rather pass away than not eat this every day. And so, so you've got to try to work with them and everything else.
Yeah, yeah. We've had a few handouts made, and I've attempted to speak to the referring physicians as well. Then, you know, is the connect with the patient directly better, or with the referring physician? You know, you got to work as a team, because they are all the ones who are following them up. So if you have structured programs around it, or how do you see this as a possibility? Those were my thoughts, basically.
So I would say one of my good friends is a nutritionist, and we're always talking about ways of getting the folks to work together. The dyad of a doctor and a nutritionist working together as a team sounds wonderful. Problem is, we're maybe 3% of physicians, and we're about 3% of the dietitians who are whole food plant-based in the United States. If you guys are doing better, you got a better shot at them than we do. But we really need the team approach, and right now I just don't have it.
Thank you, Dr. William.
All right. I know
the
we're
next
over
question is it okay? Can we have overshot the time? I hope you have the time to answer a few more questions.
I think I do for a few, but I do have to get to my office pretty soon. You can tell I'm in my library. Okay.
Okay. So there's a question about, can we estimate the cost difference between a whole food plant-based diet versus a fancy, the meds, and a bad diet for a month? Is it possible to?
So the funny part is that if you'd asked me that a month ago, I'd have said that's so far beyond cardiology, I have no chance of answering it. But that actually is part of the manuscript that I'm working on when it said things were expensive. And so the basic principles that I'm pointing out, and no, I couldn't give you the exact cost, but I can tell you that when you do, what I found out is that when you do beans, grains, nuts, seeds in bulk, that's way less expensive than animal products, number one. Number two, when you do go to the produce aisle, you buy limited quantities of things that are perishable and not freezable, like my iceberg lettuce. I know arugula is better, but I like iceberg. Okay. And so I'm going to do smaller amounts of that, but carrots and a lot of the things can actually be cooked and frozen. So there is no perishability issue. And so the important part is to make sure that you have those principles when you walk into the store. I tell my patients two things. Number one, when you go home, go to your refrigerator, look inside, find all the dead bodies, and bury them in the backyard. And then go to the grocery store, go to the produce aisle, and when you're done in the produce aisle, go to the cash register. And so hopefully that approach, getting people to understand that a whole food plant-based diet is going to be healthier for them. And, and I'm not going to give them that answer that, oh, it's cheaper in the long run. It's cheaper in the short run.
Thank you. How does, I mean, there's another question. Do you have a solid evidence against dairy when it comes to cardiovascular disease? There's been a lot of thing, but because even in the study, you showed that low-fat dairy, high-fat dairy didn't have so much. So if you can throw some light on that.
So yeah, so that was as a substitute for meat. So just remember, if you substitute arsenic for cyanide, you do better. Okay. So that study isn't really the best standard. What you'd like is large groups of, and the only one that showed dairy was any better was the, animal protein versus vegetable protein. All-cause mortality in Japan seemed to be lower, even though cardiovascular disease was higher. All-cause mortality and cancer mortality was higher, but all-cause mortality was lower with dairy. And I didn't know if that meant people who drank dairy in Japan wore seatbelts or didn't jump off cliffs. I don't know what that meant, but it wasn't cancer or heart disease because those were worse with dairy. So the data is not as definitive with any of them. By the Harvard study, it's like 2% worse than fish and poultry, but that data is there. But if I could just sort of digress for a moment, I would never do dairy because it's got cholesterol and saturated fat and my own personal cholesterol. But it's also about the way the cows are treated and greenhouse gases. And sure, I drive an electric car, but it wouldn't make any sense to go and drive an electric car and then eat cow products, because the methane is 23 times more potent against the environment than carbon dioxide. So who's ever considering dairy has to think about the long-term consequences. And it's so funny that I wasn't much of a planet sustainability person until I had my 9th grandkid, and then all of a sudden it hit me. These people have to have a place to live 80 years from now.
Thank you, Dr. William. Have you had any experience of somebody on a whole food plant-based diet and still having a high cholesterol or a high LDL?
Oh, absolutely. And so, but we collect them in cardiology. What I would say is that there are plenty of folks who were doing like the famous Esselstyn diet who ended up with heart attacks. Okay. But that's because they had really bad cholesterol levels. It's part of its genetic. And they had coronary disease when they started the Esselstyn diet, and they didn't take a statin. Esselstyn does not recommend that anymore. He says, if you're at high risk, you should be on a statin. Well, pretty much everybody's at high risk once they have coronary disease. But I wouldn't focus on that. I'd focus on the other side, the number of doctors who are giving statins and never telling the patient to change their diet. And I can tell you that in my practice of doing, vegan cardiology for 21 years, no patient taking both a statin and a whole food plant-based diet has had a single event. So I'm hoping that that continues, and I'm hoping that everybody else can adopt and see how far that goes.
That's a very good suggestion. Thank you. One last question. Can occasional deviations from a whole food plant-based diet, say once a month or a single meal of fish, meat, or poultry, be allowed if patients expressively ask for a cheat day?
So the way I look at it is it depends on your risk. And that is the people who, I've gotten some people, like the Esselstyn people, he would send me patients who are on the Esselstyn diet and they can't find a cardiologist who will try to manage them because they've got 3 vessel disease and left main disease, and they're supposed to have bypass surgery and they don't want it. And they want to do it with diet. Well, I will follow them. I'm happy to follow them. And for those folks at that high risk, the answer was, please don't ever stray in any way. And then there are other people who, like myself, I have a fairly high risk. I know what that is. I'm not going to stray. But then there are other people who, all the way down to the PCSK9 deficient people, who could eat at whatever they want, and their LDL is going to be 14. They're still going to have some inflammation if they eat an animal, but if they were eating an occasional animal product, not good for the planet, not good for the animal. I can guarantee the animal didn't like it. But as it turns out, they will actually probably not be harmed by it. So hard to answer that. My recommendation is go with the patient where they are and try to move them more toward the whole food plant-based diet as far as they can go without leaving your clinic and go to another doctor, where things are always going to be easier with another doctor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Kim Williams. This has been such a insightful and lovely webinar. I always, in my talks, I quote you saying that I'm not afraid of dying. I just don't want it to be my fault. And I find that so very, what shall I say? It just hits the nail. So thank you so much for having, and actually, in fact, staying over time also and answering all our questions. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you, Dr. Williams.
My pleasure. Thanks, everyone.